Okay, so had the engine on the stand. Did this the other night. It was too dark to really record anything, but got the engine and the transmission separated. Transmission is gonna have to get cleaned off because it's got sludge and shit all over it. But anyway, went to AutoZone earlier, bought some of the Permatex right stuff to reseal this. Going to take the oil pan off after we drain the oil and reseal that, and depending on how long that takes, maybe get the motor off the stand and connect it back to the transmission. And got Destiny out here. She's a little freezing. It's like 30 degrees out here. She ain't too happy about it, and she's trying to stay warm. But anyway, that's the plan for today, so we're gonna figure out how to attack this. Some cute socks you got there, girl.
Leave me alone.
Alright guys, you boys out here trying to fund some car stuff, so just so you know, we got feet pics out here for sale. You know, DM me if you're serious. Alright, drained all the oil out of it. Took all the bolts out for the oil pan. Got to break this seal and see what the inside of this pan looks like and try to reseal it. Let's hope it comes off without an issue. Some bolts were missing. I don't know if the heads broke off of them or what, but there's like 3 bolts you can't find for the oil pan. So that might have something to do with why it's leaking. So we'll see. Alright, so good news or bad news. I cannot get the oil pan to come off. All the bolts are out and it still does not want to move. So yeah, I don't think it's the oil pan. It seems to be sealed properly. It's not really leaking or anything. It just has oil residual stuff on it, but it was right above the subframe, so I feel like anything that was dripping off the subframe was going to hit it, and that was the problem. Was the oil, as you can tell, was coming down right here and meeting in the middle right here, pooling on the subframe. So that leads me to believe it's this line, because for one, look at this line. It's not supposed to do that. It's been sitting here for a few weeks now, and you can tell it's still got oil on it. It's not supposed to be so loose like that. Yeah, so I'm pretty positive that's an issue for sure. But so we're gonna remake this. You just can't tell if this is leaking or not because you can't see the line underneath the stainless steel sheath. This one was loose, but it's tight as shit right now. And so none of the oil, and there's a little bit of oil inside of the block, but that's not what the issue was. The issue was what was coming down off the subframe, and this leaked. The way this hose is sitting, dripped straight down onto the side of the subframe and then went down into the middle, pooled down there in the middle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this Permatex and I'm just going to make a little bead around the side of the pan, just a very thin one, and put the bolts back in it and everything. I've cleaned it up a little bit. These need to get retightened. This coolant stuff is leaking. This is leaking because this hose, because used to my heater core and everything was disconnected, and so these hoses were just sitting up here, but I didn't really realize that they weren't tightened, so they're leaking, and so that's why all this shit is messy like it is. But yeah, we're gonna clean this thing back up. We're gonna change this oil line, and we're gonna get it put back together and put back in the motor. Alright guys, so we have the new turbo line made right here. Just 2 push lock fittings and push lock hose. It's pretty simple. It's actually quite easy to make, a whole ton easier to make than braided line, but this should be about like that. We have about another 3 feet or so of hose, 3.5 feet of hose if I need to cut it a little bit shorter maybe. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. Should fit a whole ton better than the old one, because the old one was too long. Plus we got some JZGTE thread sealant. Should help us clean these threads up a little bit, keep them from potentially leaking. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that now.
Day 2.
Alright, I don't know where I left off, but here's where we are. It's the next day. got the motor and the transmission back together, and now we're ready to put it back in the car. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing put back together. Problem. What are you doing, Riley? Problem we're having now is pulling it out. I kind of broke this piece right here, this spring. So I got to figure out either how to fix that or to replace that. But I'm not gonna much mess with that until it's back in the car. So. Alright, so upon further investigation, part of what this leak that I've been having on this motor is in the engine bay was these two coolant tubes. These are the heater core hoses. This one I see because my heater core and everything was bypassed a while back until we, replaced the AC system under the dash, which a couple videos back. And so I never had coolant running like I had it running looped through here. Well, apparently whenever I redid this and actually put it through the heater core, I never put these clamps on, so this one was never tightened down right here. This one was never tightened down, and they were both leaking pretty bad. So got that fixed, got everything plugged in on the transmission, tried to clean the transmission up a little bit. Basically I think we're good to go to put it into the engine bay. So part of what the problem we were having pulling this out was this throttle cable. I stretched it quite bad, so yeah, pretty sure that's probably going to need to be replaced because I can't tell until we put the motor back in it. But that, and then because when I pulled the motor out, I left it on the clamp right here, and see, it doesn't want to spring back now because the spring is busted. I don't know how or what exactly went wrong with it, other than the fact that it rolled all the way back because it was still attached to that when I tried to pull it out. I don't know if it's fixable or not, but I guess we'll find out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Gonna go ahead and get this thing ready to go back in. Gonna clean the subframe up a little bit from where there was oil residue, so that way once we get this thing back in, maybe we can tell where it's leaking from if it decides to leak again. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that now. Alright, so after a lot of cussing and yelling and arguing and praying and cursing and a little bit of ritual black magic work in there, shrunken heads and whatnot, got the motor back in. It did not want to cooperate at all. I know, it was miserable. She thinks it's miserable. So I don't think we fucked anything up putting it back in, thank God. We did bend this out a little bit, but that can be bent back out. I think that's about it. Yeah, so now what's left is I need to bundle up the heater hoses, and then I need to put the motor mounts in, run that starter cable up and over, bolt the transmission in, bolt this in, and then you do all the little accessory harness stuff, AC lines and whatnot, and then other than that we will be good to go. So that's gameplay now. Is we're gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna get the foundation of this bolted back in, like the motor mounts and the transmission cross member, and then from there we're just gonna start rebuilding the front end and getting that is put back together as we can, so that way the next time I work on this I just gotta finish plugging things in, put oil in this thing, and see if it runs. After, of course, we diagnose this. So yeah, so stick around for that, guys. Alright, the motor is bolted in, the transmission's bolted in. I spent way too much time trying to get that cross member to line up. But anyway, that's all bolted in, so that motor is not going anywhere. Now we're going to finish putting everything back together. I'm going to go ahead and do the drive shaft bolts next, because that is easily my least favorite thing about taking all this stuff apart, because those drive shaft bolts are a bitch, because generally it's not positioned well enough that you can access all the bolts. So you have to lower the car, slightly move it so the axle spins a little bit, lift it back up, get back underneath it, and finish bolting those up. Not only that, there's just not a lot of room to work under there. It's just a pain in the ass. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and finish doing this now. Alright guys, not a whole lot of progress more to show you guys. Did get the alternator plugged back up, starters hooked up, all the air hoses, like the AC hoses are hooked up. Everything is ready to go back together on the front end. Got the transmission, everything bolted up. I just went and got up under there and put the converter bolts in, because I forgot to do those when I put the transmission together and before I put it in the car. So the converter bolts are in, the drive shaft is bolted in, the shifter is bolted in, cross member for the transmission is in, the fuel line under the car is in, that runs the tank. Starter's hooked up on the bottom, the cables ran over. So now all that's left to do is put in the radiator, the AC condenser, hook back up the intercooler and the intercooler pipes, heater hoses, and then put the front bumper back on, and we'll be good to crank it up once we put some new fluids in it. So it also is going to need an oil change, top off the transmission fluid, and then we will be able to run this thing and see if it still leaks like a madman like it did. And if so, then our problem is somewhere else. If it still leaks, my next suspect is going to be the oil pump behind the crank pulley and the front main seal and whatnot. So we'll look at that as well, but I think the turbo line was it. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I know you guys have pretty much seen this before because there's motors come in and out, but I appreciate you guys sticking around for some content. And so, yeah, the motor's back in the Lexus, and so we're just a few days away from firing it up because I won't be back over here again until Monday. It is Saturday now, so you guys will probably see this Sunday or Monday. I won't be back until Monday night to work on this. So anyways, other than that, guys, follow me on Instagram at mellow_2JZ, and subscribe for more videos. Give the videos a thumbs up, share them, try to build a subscriber base and everything. But other than that, guys, enjoy your day. Peace.